Welcome to the Weekly Dose Podcast, your one-stop shop for the weekly news in incretin mimetic therapies, with your host, man on the Mounjaro, Dave Knapp. Welcome to the Tuesday, September 17th edition of On the Pen, the Weekly Dose, the 2024 Iowa podcast, People's Choice Award-winning podcast. That's because of you, and that is what we're leading with. I'm your host, Dave Knapp, man on the Mounjaro. That's why I'm here. You are on the pen. Wegovy, Saxenda, Victoza, Trulicity, Mounjaro, Zepbound, that pen. That's what we talk about here at On the Pen, the Weekly Dose. We talk about all the news surrounding these medications, obesity treatments, diabetes treatments. If you're new and this is your first time here, welcome. It's good to have you here. But yes, this past Sunday evening, my wife Jenny and I traveled down to Cedar Rapids, Iowa for the Iowa Podcast Awards, where we were awarded the 2024 People's Choice Award. Now, this was a special award because this was the community that voted our podcast as the podcast of choice. And we beat out some very stiff competition with much larger followings, but it is this community, the community that has struggled with obesity their entire lives. We can be moved to action when we are moved to do so. And this community is so underestimated by the outside world. And I love it because we are showing them just what we're capable of. Of course, we accomplished the release the vials together, and we won this award together. I'm looking forward to the coming year to see what else we might accomplish together. And in that vein, we're going to talk a little bit about the news today in incretin mimetics, but I do want to just say a special thank you to my wife, Jenny, who has been such a trooper as I have efforted to build this thing at On the Pen. It has been a tremendous amount of commitment. It's been a tremendous amount of sacrifice to build this. And so for a man who's seeking to do something like that, to have a supporting and loving wife like I do, is just, she's the wind in my sail. And so I love you, Jen. Thank you so much for your support. To my kids who have definitely sacrificed some daddy time over the last couple of years so that we could build something special. Thank you for encouraging me and loving me. I love you guys. And to Clark Kent, who helped me to start this thing back at the beginning of this year. Clark Kent was instrumental in not only getting me to start the podcast, but in a lot of the news that was shared early on with the podcast as well. So thank you to Clark Kent. But we're going to get into some interesting news about Ozempic, because we heard from Novo Nordisk that Ozempic, which is branded semaglutide for type 2 diabetes, is likely to be included in the next round of Medicare drug price negotiations that are aimed at securing discounts for high-cost medications. Now, this is very interesting because we don't have GLP-1s currently being negotiated for special pricing for Medicare. So this will actually it's expected to begin this year, with revised prices to take effect for Medicare Part D in 2027. So that won't be until a few more years, but the potential price reductions, if selected, beneficiaries could actually see lower costs for Ozempic when these prices take effect, and potentially in 2027. Currently, Ozempic has a list price of $968.52 per month in the U.S., making it extremely expensive, extremely out of reach for patients on Medicare and with private insurance, unless you have that coverage and can maybe take advantage of a savings card to bring that price down a little bit. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services are targeting the costliest drugs in their negotiations, similar to the first round of negotiations, which began a year ago, with prices for those drugs set to take place in 2026. But as I mentioned before, no GLP-1s currently. If successful, the negotiation could significantly reduce the financial burden on Medicare, which is a huge topic of conversation. Obviously, we have in the next couple of weeks here, a big hearing on Capitol Hill where they're going to be grilling the CEO of Novo Nordisk, the maker of Ozempic, on the high cost. And so I think this will be a very interesting one to watch over the next few weeks. And of course, we'll cover it all very closely here at On the Pen, as you're used to. I want to shift gears for just a moment and tell you about our sponsor, Ro. Ro is a amazing telemedicine company. The ethos behind Ro is really to provide a frictionless experience between you and your medical providing team so that you can get access to the medications that are going to help you live the best version of you and accomplish the things you want to accomplish in life. And of course, among a whole host of suites that they have, that they offer through their telemedicine program, access to GLP-1 medications is one of them through the Ro Body program, where participants in the Ro Body program over the course of the year lost 15 to 20% of their body weight when prescribed GLP-1 medications. Now, of course, anytime you're taking a new medication, there's potential side effects. So you want to check that out at ro.co/OTP. But there you're going to learn everything you need to know about the Ro Body program. You can, in just a couple of clicks, find information about side effects and things like that. But just a great program. Many people are on that Ro Body program already. The great thing is they have some tools that'll help you very quickly figure out which medications you're covered for. And with the integrated supply tracker tool, find out which medications are even available. So thank you to Ro for being a sponsor of On the Pen, the Weekly Dose podcast. Now, moving through some additional news, Blue Cross Blue Shield is doing something that is really out of left field. So check this out. This article came from Bloomberg this week. And Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield's demanding money back from doctors that they allege inappropriately prescribed Ozempic, and is accusing these doctors of falsifying medical records to get insurance coverage for the drug. Now, the doctors in return are arguing prescribing Ozempic off-label for weight loss is completely legal and appropriate, especially considering the indications that came along later on. Off-label prescribing is super common in the United States. You're going to see across all hosts of medication that they are often prescribed for things that they did not start out as. In fact, minoxidil, which is one of the treatments for hair loss, you may have heard Rogaine, are also a blood pressure medication too. So, you just see many uses outside of the original use case. Of course, we're seeing new indications for GLP-1 medications all the time. Heart failure being the latest, but later on this year, probably sleep apnea for Tirzepatide, and a whole host of others that we've covered exclusively and explicitly on this channel. Off-label prescribing is super common. And so what the doctors are basically saying is that they didn't profit off of the sale of the medication. So why should they be responsible for paying back the cost of the medication? It isn't as if they had financial incentive to prescribe Ozempic off-label. And they're really seeing this as a shot across the bow at off-label prescribing in general, which the health system really relies on. Many people, if this has been you and you have taken a medication off-label for something and you're comfortable, drop it in the chat and let us know. Let everybody know how common this is, because I'm surprised to know how many people aren't aware that this is an extremely common practice. Of course, insurance like Anthem are trying to avoid paying the exorbitant costs for these medications, which we talked about a little bit earlier in the stream. The cost for diabetes and obesity drugs like Ozempic and MOUNJARO cost the U.S. $18 billion last year. So $18 billion in sales between these drugs last year, and they're about $1,000 a month. Some of them a little bit higher, some of them a little bit lower, but obviously we know that they're extremely expensive to take. And this is sort of Anthem's way at, I think ultimately, do they think they're going to get $1 back from these doctors? No, I think it's a scare tactic. Where else have we seen that? Put it in the chat if you know where else we've seen scare tactics coming from big corporations to try to shut down things they don't like, right? But I honestly think at the end of the day, what you're going to see here is it's a shot across the bow, but I don't think it has a whole lot of teeth. Because as these doctors are saying, they didn't benefit from prescribing these. And ultimately, the negative indication is that You may see doctors wanting to prescribe off-label less, which I think is a really would be a detrimental thing to the healthcare system in the United States. So we'll have to see where this goes. But of course, like I said before, we'll be covering this very closely at On the Pen. And this brings me to some really interesting news that happened this past week. And I suppose it's news because we sort of are the GLP-1 news at some points. This community is the news. On the Pen, Zepbound for Weight Loss, which was a 20,000 strong user group on Facebook, which relied on each other to help to know how to navigate just starting the medications, as far as what kind of conversations to have with your doctor about side effects if you're experiencing them, how to deal with insurance companies when they don't want to cover your medication, how to source medication when you can't find the medication, how to call the pharmacies, the right things to say to the insurance companies. So many elements of this journey, including the stories of thousands of people, which was documented through this group, overnight was taken away by Facebook. The group was shut down with no warning, no prior infractions, nothing. Just a clean sweep that the algorithm did, and it did away with this group of 20,000 people. The sad reality here is that while they're trying to shut down whatever, I'm not even sure what they're trying to shut down, what kind of behavior or what's going on Facebook that we got caught up in inadvertently. But really what ultimately happened was people's stories, people's journeys were just erased overnight. The community that they relied on as they navigated this journey in an already marginalized group of people. This was just a horrible, horrible thing that happened over on Facebook. And so we do have, of course, the On the Pen with Dave Knapp group. That is the backup group, which is growing daily. So thank you for those who have found it. I will link it in the description and the show notes. But we have also started a Discord channel. And this Discord channel is going to be much more comprehensive than any group you've been in before. If you're afraid of Discord because you've never used it before, don't be afraid. It's like the chat rooms of old. It's very easy to figure out, and there's going to be hundreds and soon thousands of people in there that will help you to figure out how to navigate it. But it is going to be great community. Of course, we also have a forum over at onthepen.com. So I'm going to link all of these in the description of this video so that you know where to find me. But of course, when we are actively participating on these social media platforms, we are never participating on them with any promise that it's going to be there tomorrow. That's why it's super important, if you follow me, to sign up for email alerts so that no matter what app is coming after us and targeting us for whatever reason today, that tomorrow you'll be able to find me somewhere else, and you're going to be able to stay in touch by signing up for email alerts at onthepen.com. This was a great week in On the Pen. Thank you again for those who not only voted in the Iowa Podcast Awards, but for the so very kind things that people said on the various platforms, whether it was Twitter or TikTok or YouTube. Thank you so much for the kind words. If you feel so inclined, leave the podcast a 5-star rating and review. That's how we can make sure other people see this podcast in the future. But thank you so much for this. Just a wonderful award to win. And I'm excited for the future of the Iowa Podcast Awards and just so very thankful. Until next week, thank you for hanging out with me today. Thank you for being here for On the Pen, the weekly dose. We'll see you again next week. Of course, this Thursday night on the Pen Live, we've got Mimi from the Retatrutide trials. It's been a few months since she's been on. She's going to come back and give us an update on how her journey is going on Retatrutide. So don't miss that. Live this Thursday night, we've got Mimi from the Retatrutide trial. The following week, we will have Amy from Amy and Half, who's been on the Oprah program, who's just been a wonderful influencer and creator in the GLP-1 space. And then within the next couple of weeks, we'll have Dr. Daniel Rosen on again, working on some other really big names as well. So really excited for the future of On the Pen Live, which is our Thursday night show. If you're missing it, you're missing out, but you don't have to. You can go over there at onthepen.tv and watch all of the episodes. Just binge watch them. Lots of great content there for anyone on a GLP-1 journey. So thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out. Until next week, we will see you next one.